Cyberpunk 2077 is still remaining extremely active in terms of both continued development and staying active in the social sphere, especially for a 4-year-old game. And if history is set to repeat itself, we may be within weeks of receiving yet another update. And all of this for a game that was previously said to be done and finished. We also need to take a look at what's to come as development continues to slowly ramp up for Projekt Orion, aka Cyberpunk 2. What could we be looking at in terms of short-term improvements? What's the community been requesting? And what new information have we learned about Cyberpunk 2? That's everything I want to discuss today. Since Phantom Liberty dropped back in September 2023, Cyberpunk has seen a steady release of "We are done" to "We are back" announcements. In April into May of 2024, we saw a consistent publication of headlines touting that Cyberpunk 2077's development had officially ended, as CDPR had announced that The Witcher 4 had moved into full production. However, since that announcement, Cyberpunk has continued to push out new updates, with the two most recent, 2.2 and 2.21, coming from Virtuous Games, a hired third-party studio, and both updates were surprise announcements. Update 2.2 was teased a day before release and was pushed live in tandem with a red stream, ushering in all sorts of community-requested features like more Johnny, an unlocked and enhanced photo mode, more character customization options, a host of fixes, and even increases to the Crystal Coat and Twin Tone libraries. From what was said during that live stream, where both Virtuous and the Cyberpunk team revealed Update 2.2, this didn't sound like it was going to be a one-off thing either.
And maybe we still have a surprise or two left for you. Maybe.
Taking a look at the potential for future Cyberpunk updates led us to this prior statement made by Mikhail Nowakowski, joint CEO of CD Projekt, when he said, "Work on Polaris is progressing. Its development team is nearing a major milestone, which will mark the end of the pre-production phase. This first half of the year was also a busy period for our Boston studio, which is laying the groundwork for Projekt Orion, a new game set in the Cyberpunk universe." And bear in mind, Nowakowski made this announcement during the company's November 2024 earnings call nearly 3 months ago. But what does it actually all mean? Well, first is the potential for another update to hit Cyberpunk, possibly just a little later this month, as past updates have come in between previous investors' calls, and the next one of these is scheduled for late this month on March 25th. And as you would expect during these calls, investors want to know what the vision is for the company, but more importantly, what is CD Projekt's vision for the future, and how will that translate into dollars generated? Quickly, for a bit of context here, this is a company that delivered a game in Cyberpunk 2077 that suffered incredibly at launch, and it was riddled with performance problems. And according to reports, CD Projekt has spent a reported $125 million in development costs to not only complete the game, but turn it into the juggernaut you see today, including the release of the highly anticipated Phantom Liberty expansion, helping to mend the bridges between player base and studio, ultimately pushing the game back to overwhelmingly positive ratings on Steam. But I digress. The question again was dollars generated and how to keep the investors investing, especially since the company is some years from releasing anything new to market. And here's where CD Projekt's focus on long-term sustainability comes into play. You see, the current franchise releases for both The Witcher and Cyberpunk have to sustain the company through 2025, possibly into 2026, and one way to do that is with smaller, more focused updates. Adding in community-requested features to say Cyberpunk 2077 or The Witcher 3 renews enthusiasm for the product. The release of the official Red Kit modding tools for The Witcher 3 in May of 2024 is just one example of this strategy, and it could be one of the items released to modders for Cyberpunk 2077 in the next update, possibly later this month. Nowakowski has already publicly stated his affinity for modding when he said this during an investor's call.
When it comes to any future things, Cyberpunk, anything related, I mean, once we have something on our hands, we will definitely talk about that. But in general, I would indicate that community-created content by means of mods enabled and powered by really well-prepared tools is something we are fond of, and we do see value in that, in how we interact with the fans.
And by releasing those official mod tools, it also creates a stream of players engaging with both the mods and with their community-created content. More players playing means more buzz around the product, and that, my friends, creates dollars. And so begins the cycle of attracting and keeping investors happy. Now, the fact that Cyberpunk has this many mods and so many hardcore modders creating virtually whatever you can think of for the game, all without the use of official tools, is simply incredible. For instance, my V featured on the thumbnail and various other 4K enhancements I downloaded for the entire game, I probably spent at least 10 hours of free time browsing through the mod directory, finding the perfect gloves and hair and textures. I mean, you get the picture here. Now, imagine what the community could do with the resources and mod tools to truly create mods on a massive scale. Also, while we're out here talking the topic of mods, we've seen Powell Sasko, Associate Director for Projekt Orion, poll the community as to what they want to continue to see brought to 2077, even after Update 2.2 went live, once again confirming there seems to be more incoming. And time again, the community has responded they want to see third person. Now, as recently as March the 2nd, another Unreal Engine tech demo has surfaced, and unfortunately, the link has been downloaded too many times, or I would have recorded this footage myself. But for many, this is the definitive Cyberpunk experience they have been craving. All the grit, all the grime, all the glamour, and of course, all that neon is ever present. But now we get to see the very character we've sunk hundreds to thousands of hours into creating and role-playing with. There's also the direct comparison between Cyberpunk and The Witcher, which uses the same game engine and was made by the same company but has chosen completely different perspectives to tell their stories. GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Fallout New Vegas, and Skyrim are all games I've previously played, and they're all games that incorporated that option to toggle between perspectives. And we'll talk a bit more about Rockstar a little later in this video, but Cyberpunk fans have really been wanting to see more of their V outside of mirrors, cutscenes, or when we're in or on a vehicle. New Game Plus and or a level cap increase is one of mine, if not one of the community's most requested items, as simply raising the max cap and or giving a player the option to start over but to keep a preset amount of items or experience would immediately bring back a flood of players to the game. Imagine being able to reset back to picking between Nomad, Corpo, or Street Kid, but starting off at a level 60 and progressing upwards from there. If we saw player counts increase like they did after what was largely a cosmetics-centered update in 2.2, what would they look like if Virtuous went back into the game files and adjusted, say, the level cap, or introduced a satisfactory version of New Game Plus? Of course, at this point, all of this is just speculation, but at the very least, with 2025 looking the way it does in terms of CD Projekt Red and their release schedule and how far out they are from now, I would expect for the official mod tools to be released, more than likely sooner than expected, especially with another investor's call and statement right around the corner. But of course, all eyes are looking far off to the future. Cyberpunk 2, aka Projekt Orion, which is another major topic that will be discussed later this month on that same CD Projekt call, and it's already been announced that Orion will stick to the same vein as 2077 and will again be using first person only, which for some feels like a missed opportunity. A new game set in the Cyberpunk universe, possibly completely separate of our current setting and timelines, and here was the perfect opportunity to move from first person over to third, and also here's the studio's chance to couple that with them moving away from their in-house Red engine over to Unreal. However, that move from Red over to Unreal is not going to come without some growing pains as the studio attempts to learn and train their team to the nuance and differences between these drastically different engines. You see, the Red engine has been developed in-house and iterated over many years, and it's very advanced, has good performance, and it scales extremely well across many cores, which is something many modern game engines, including Unreal 5, still struggle with. However, That cost to maintain and update Red must have proven expensive, since it is proprietary to the CDPR, plus Unreal ships standard these days with many up-to-date and cutting-edge features, and the break from 2077 over to Orion may have proven the optimal time to start fresh with UE5 and try to build up from there. However, for many on PC, me included, the Unreal Engine stutter has become canon for many games that use this engine, as it attempts to compile shaders when entering new areas, and CD Projekt will not only have to learn this new engine, but push to launch a product in Orion as error-free as possible. If anything, as we start to take a look at the timelines here, the Boston studio, which is maining work on Orion, is slowly and methodically making that climb to scaling up development, as based on internal documents from their own investors' calls, in April of 2024, there were only 56 devs working on this title, which then pushed to 60 in July and 64 in October. Now, by comparison, at its height, at full production, The Witcher was somewhere close to 400 developers. So Orion is still technically an early pre-production and years away from launch. That being said, they are still actively hiring and looking to bolster the developer ranks for all positions, ranging from lead encounter designer down to a senior gameplay animator. And in total, split between their Poland and Boston studios, Orion is showing 23 positions they are looking to fill. Now, one of those positions, and more specifically the job description, caught some recent scrutiny, and it comes under the job heading of lead encounter designer when it states, work in close collaboration with the systems design team to create the most realistic and reactive crowd system in any game to date. Remember back when I said we would talk more about Rockstar and their previous work? Well, here it comes, because when most gamers think reactive crowds and the systems driving those mobs, they think GTA 5, maybe Red Dead 2. I'm going to even throw a curveball in here, but Assassin's Creed Unity, which released back in 2014, did it very well, or even more recently, KCD 2. These are all examples of reactive and organic crowd systems done right. Cyberpunk 2077 has improved on this facet, and what we see now in the game is a far cry from that we got at launch, but when compared to those aforementioned titles, there's still quite a gap here. Now, the fact that this position mentions this facet specifically at least shows that CDPR understands that was a major design flaw when they launched 2077 version 1.0, and they have to get it right when Orion finally comes to market. As always, leave me any feedback you have about CDPR, Project Orion, or Cyberpunk 2077, and of course I will do my best to respond. Remember to hit subscribe and to ring that notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. All my socials, including today's sources, can be found in the video description. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.